Queen Bee Gardens once recalled entire batches of its whipped honey because stainless steel fragments were found inside, an unsettling reminder that even small family-run producers can fail basic safety standards. Meanwhile, Manuka honey from New Zealand, often marketed as premium, was caught with glyphosate residues beyond acceptable limits. And then there's the issue with massive retail brands like Walmart and Aldi, whose honey blends from undisclosed global sources make it nearly impossible to trace origins or verify authenticity. If you're tired of being lied to, if you're ready to expose the truth they don't want you to know, then don't just watch. Join this fight. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss the facts the corporations hope you'll ignore. Every new video pulls back the curtain a little more, and together we're building a movement they can't silence. Subscribe, stay informed, and let's take back control, one truth at a time. These aren't isolated problems. The so-called raw honey from various brands often undergoes filtration and heating that strips away natural pollen and enzymes, rendering the label meaningless. Against this chaotic backdrop, KeVita and Nature Nates stand out, not for perfection, but for their commitment to transparency, third-party testing, and honest labeling. The truth is, not all honey is created equal, and most consumers have no idea what's really in the jar. Additives, contaminants, vague origins, these are the industry norms, not the exceptions. That's why brands like KeVita and Nature Nates matter. They don't just claim purity, they prove it, with batch-specific lab results, traceable sourcing, and minimal processing that preserves what honey is supposed to be. In a market flooded with shortcuts and deception, their approach sets a critical standard. If authenticity, safety, and integrity matter, then choosing honey must go beyond price tags and pretty packaging. It starts with verifiable trust. Let's get one thing straight, honey is not always what it claims to be. For years, honey has been marketed as nature's most wholesome, untouched food, golden, sweet, and pure. At least that's what the label tells you. But when you start digging into the actual testing, batch recalls, and processing methods behind that cute little honey bear or boutique jar of raw wildflower blend, a different picture emerges, one where contamination, adulteration, and misleading marketing are far too common. Here's the hard truth. A shocking amount of honey sold today isn't really honey, it's a cocktail, cut with rice or corn syrup, processed with heat that wipes out natural enzymes and pollen, or laced with chemical residues that have no business in your kitchen. The sweet illusion of purity shatters the moment you read the lab reports. Let's start with a real warning. Queen Bee Gardens, a family-run company that markets itself on charm and craftsmanship, had to recall its whipped honey after stainless steel fragments were discovered in the product. Metal, in your honey. The source, equipment wear and tear. To their credit, they responded quickly and upgraded their systems. But that's exactly why batch codes and open communication matter. It's not enough to be small batch and local, you have to be transparent too. And when safety issues come up, consumers deserve immediate, honest answers. And then there's the bigger deception, the word raw. You'll see it everywhere in the honey aisle. Raw honey, unfiltered, pure. But in far too many cases, those words are meaningless. There's no consistent legal standard for raw, and many of these so-called raw honeys are heated during bottling or aggressively filtered. What's lost in the process? Pollen, enzymes, the actual indicators that tell scientists where the honey came from and how real it is. If a brand can't back up their raw claim with third-party verification or test results, they're selling you a marketing buzzword, not real raw honey. It gets worse when you walk into big box stores. Ever pick up a bottle of honey from Walmart or Aldi and notice the fine print? That tiny label that says blend of EU and non-EU honeys. Translation, we don't know where this stuff came from. Could be Ukraine, could be Argentina, could be a mixture of 5 different countries. There's no way to tell. And once it's all heated, filtered, and bottled to look uniform and shelf-stable, all regional character is lost. What's left isn't honey, it's sugar goo. Legally acceptable, maybe, but authentic? Not even close. Even the premium stuff isn't safe. One Manuka honey brand out of New Zealand was found to contain glyphosate, that's right, the weed killer. And not just trace amounts, levels above the safety limits. That's a chemical no one wants in their food, especially not in a jar that costs $50 and promises pristine origins. It proves one thing: price doesn't equal purity. Even the fanciest honey can fail the basic test of safety. The bigger issue here isn't just about taste, it's about trust, and that's why testing and verification matter. You can't confirm honey's authenticity by color, by label, or by price. The only real measure is scientific testing, chemical analysis, pollen verification, DNA fingerprinting, and transparent documentation. Without it, everything else is just marketing. Let's talk about brands that do it right. KeVita is one of them. They use the UMF standard, unique Manuka factor, to validate their honey's purity and potency. That's not a feel-good number. It's a scientific measurement based on actual chemical markers. KeVita doesn't just stop there. They publish batch-specific data. You can trace your jar back to the hive and see the test results for yourself. That level of openness, that's rare. That's what responsible honey looks like. Then there's Nature Nates. They've built their name on transparency and minimal processing. Their honey isn't superheated, it isn't aggressively filtered, and they rely on in-house testing to ensure each batch holds up. It's simple, local, and traceable. And unlike brands that rely on vague regional blends or outsourcing, Nature Nates keeps control of their supply chain. You know what you're getting, and you know where it came from. These two brands prove something crucial: authenticity and scale can coexist, but only when the producers are committed to real transparency, batch testing, and ethical sourcing, because the bigger issue here goes far beyond a recall or a bad batch. Honey is supposed to reflect the land, the flowers, the bees, and the environment it came from. It should carry the signature of place, but once it's processed into oblivion or blended beyond recognition, it becomes just another faceless sweetener. That's not what honey was ever meant to be. And let's not ignore the role of you, the consumer. You have power here. You decide what stays on the shelf and what gets pulled. Every time you choose a bottle with clear batch numbers, with test results, with a real origin listed, you're telling the industry shortcuts aren't good enough. Fancy words on a label, not enough. Natural, pure, raw. If there's no proof, it's just a guess. Hold brands accountable. Ask for documentation. Demand third-party certifications. Anything less is just noise. And don't just buy based on price. Cheap honey comes at a cost to quality, to traceability, and sometimes to your health. Contaminants like glyphosate and heavy metals aren't just industrial flukes. They're a result of cutting corners, of hiding supply chains, of ignoring the testing that should be mandatory for every single jar. You deserve better, and the bees deserve better too. Beekeeping isn't just a feel-good hobby, it's agriculture, it's stewardship. Responsible producers test every batch. They avoid shortcuts. They invest in transparency, not just for marketing, but because they understand the value of trust. That's the difference between a brand worth supporting and one to avoid. So let's get specific. Avoid brands that don't disclose origin. Avoid brands that slap raw on the label but don't publish test results. Avoid brands caught in recalls with no clear communication. Avoid honey labeled as a blend with no countries listed, and avoid companies that can't or won't tell you where their honey came from or how it was processed. And while you're avoiding those, support KeVita, support Nature Nates, brands that test, disclose, and tell you the truth. Brands that prove that real honey doesn't need tricks or filters, it just needs honesty. If you care about what goes into your body and what stays out, you have to care about where your honey comes from. Read the labels, ask for proof, and hold every brand to a higher standard. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and share it with someone who buys honey. Leave a comment and tell us what honey brands you trust or which ones you're avoiding from now on. And don't forget to subscribe for more truth, more breakdowns, and more tools to make smarter choices at the store. Let's dig deeper into why this matters so much, because this isn't just about one bad brand or a couple of mislabeled jars. This is about a broken system, a supply chain full of loopholes, vague standards, and almost no enforcement. You walk into the grocery store, you see dozens of honey products: light amber, dark amber, organic, farm fresh, raw, unfiltered, but what are you actually looking at? For most consumers, the label is all they have, and companies know that, so they use it. They flood the shelves with comforting language that gives you a false sense of security, hoping you won't ask questions. Let's be clear, the words pure, natural, and raw are largely unregulated. That means a company can legally slap those terms on their packaging, even if the honey inside has been heated to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, filtered within an inch of its life, and blended with syrup. As long as the sugar content checks out, no one's policing it, and that's the core of the problem. Testing isn't mandatory. If a brand wants to mix honey from multiple countries, they don't have to list where it all came from. They can just write product of Canada or packed in the USA, even if the honey was sourced from multiple untraceable regions around the world. No wonder we're in this mess. Let's talk about blended honey again, because this is where things get murky fast. The phrase blend of EU and non-EU honeys should be a red flag every single time. It's vague by design. What's really happening is that lower-cost honey from markets like China, India, or Ukraine is being imported in bulk, mixed together in massive tanks, heated, filtered, and then bottled under a single brand. You think you're buying Canadian honey or wildflower honey, but what you're really getting is the lowest common denominator, a mix that's been stripped of everything that once made it special. And forget traceability. Once that honey's been processed and blended, there's no way to determine which country the floral source came from, let alone the bee colony. It's a black hole. And if you're thinking, well, as long as it tastes fine, who cares? Here's the kicker. It's not just about flavor. It's about contaminants. That Manuka honey from New Zealand, the one with glyphosate, that's proof that even elite honey isn't immune to environmental risk. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup. It's a herbicide, and when bees forage near treated crops or contaminated soil, residues can make their way into the honey. That's not just theoretical, it's been documented, and it doesn't take much. Just one contaminated hive can alter the chemical safety profile of an entire batch. Now ask yourself, how many honey brands are testing for that? How many are publishing those test results? How many are telling you exactly what's in the jar beyond just sugar content? Gavita is. Nature Nates is. That's why they're different. They don't just say they're raw or natural, they prove it. They give you the data, the documentation, the batch numbers. They put the science front and center, and in today's market, that level of honesty is revolutionary. But this goes beyond the science. It's about supply chain ethics, too. Many large-scale honey packers source honey from suppliers halfway around the world, countries where labor standards, pesticide regulations, and testing protocols vary wildly. Once that honey enters the global supply chain, it's virtually impossible to know how it was harvested, how the bees were treated, or whether the product meets any meaningful environmental standard. Brands that outsource and blend aren't just cutting corners, they're hiding behind a broken labeling system that allows for vagueness and obfuscation, and that's what needs to change. Consumers deserve transparency, real transparency, not marketing slogans, not cute farm imagery, but hard data, traceability, third-party testing, origin disclosure. Let's go back to Queen Bee Gardens one more time. That recall for metal fragments, it wasn't some abstract quality control glitch. That was real risk in a product people feed their kids. And while Queen Bee Gardens responded quickly and took responsibility, the incident is a reminder. Without rigorous routine testing, things slip through. No brand is immune, not even the charming artisanal ones. Trust should never rely solely on appearance or reputation. It has to be earned through process, proof, and openness. So what should you do? Start with labels. If it doesn't list the country of origin clearly, move on. If it says blend, move on. If there's no mention of batch numbers, independent testing, or standards like UMF or True Source certified, it's not worth your money. And yes, that might mean paying a little more for a smaller jar, but when it comes to a product you're putting into your body, and often giving to your children, it's worth the extra $. Look for brands that back their claims with evidence. Gavita uses the UMF standard and gives you the numbers to back it up. That's how Manuka honey should be done. Nature Nates gives you minimal processing, local sourcing, and a chain of custody that's transparent from hive to shelf. That's how honey should be handled. No shortcuts, no smoke and mirrors, and this isn't about elitism or gatekeeping. This is about honesty. It's about raising the bar for a product that's been dragged through the mud by corporate greed and marketing spin, because at its core, real honey is something beautiful. It's the product of bees, flowers, and time. It doesn't need to be tampered with. It doesn't need to be processed to death or stripped of its identity just to look uniform on a grocery store shelf. Real honey is supposed to vary. That's part of its charm. Clover honey doesn't look like buckwheat honey. Orange blossom doesn't taste like acacia, and that's okay. In fact, it's better than okay. It's proof that the honey is real, regional, and minimally processed. Uniformity is a sign of manipulation, not quality. So the next time someone tries to sell you a mass-market blend that's light and sweet, and goes with everything, ask yourself, what did they remove to get it that way? What did they heat out of it? What did they filter out? If there's no pollen, there's no way to verify origin. If there's no batch number, there's no accountability. And if there's no testing data, there's no reason to trust it. This is where the power of choice matters. You have the ability to reward the brands doing it right, and reject the ones doing it wrong. Every time you choose verified honey from KeVita or Nature Nates, you're voting for a better system, one that values quality over profit, transparency over deception, and nature over manipulation. Let's stop rewarding companies that sell shortcuts in a jar. Let's stop believing that natural means anything when it's not backed by science. Let's stop falling for the bear-shaped bottles and vague origins. We deserve better. The bees deserve better. The honey industry counts on you not paying attention. They count on you grabbing the cheapest bottle on the shelf. They count on you seeing natural and assuming it means something. They count on you never looking deeper, never asking questions, never thinking twice. And for years it worked, but not anymore, because when you start paying attention, when you start demanding transparency, testing, and accountability, suddenly the entire foundation of this billion-dollar industry starts to crack. The smoke and mirrors stop working. The cute branding, the warm-toned photos of bees and wildflowers, none of it holds up when you ask one simple question: can you prove what's in this jar? That's it. That's the question that separates the honest brands from the imposters. Most can't answer it, or they won't, because the second they have to prove their claims, the entire facade collapses. If your honey is real, why isn't there pollen in it? If your honey is raw, why was it heated? If your honey is local, why does the label say product of Argentina, India, and Canada? If your honey is clean, where's the glyphosate test? They don't want you to ask, but you should, because too much of what's being sold isn't honey at all. It's a processed, blended, denatured product made to look like honey, taste like honey, and fool you into thinking it's something it's not. And it's not just about what's in the jar, it's about what's not. Real honey should have complexity, depth, variation. It should taste like the region it came from, like the flowers those bees visited. But ultra-processed honey, that stuff is bland, flat, predictable, because it's been stripped of all character in the name of shelf life and consistency. What you're left with is sugar water that's been marketed into oblivion. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention: responsible beekeeping. This is the heart of it all. Without the bees, there is no honey, and the brands that respect the bees, that care about sustainable practices, that protect their hives, and treat beekeeping like the delicate art it is, they're the ones producing the best honey. KeVita gets this. Nature Nates gets this. These are companies that aren't just selling a product, they're preserving an entire ecosystem. They're investing in the land, in the hives, in the health of their bees, and that shows up in the final product. It's not just about lab tests and certifications, it's about the integrity of the entire process. And that's the key word here, integrity, because in a world full of shortcuts and half-truths, integrity stands out. You can taste it, you can verify it, you can trace it back to the source. Let's not forget what's at stake here. Honey isn't just a sweetener, it's medicine, it's tradition, it's one of the last truly natural foods left, if you get the real thing. But if we keep supporting brands that dilute it, blend it, and lie about it, we'll lose that. We'll end up with a global market flooded with fake honey, and real honey will become a niche luxury item that most people never experience again. And that's already happening. Ask anyone who's studied this field. Real, raw, unprocessed honey is harder and harder to find, and it's not because it's impossible to make, it's because the margins are tighter, the testing is expensive, and the truth isn't as profitable as the illusion. So, here's what it comes down to. If you want real honey, you have to fight for it, not with pitchforks, with purchases, with questions, with discernment, with your wallet. Buy from brands that test every batch and show you the results. Buy from companies that name their source regions, not just hide behind the word blend. Buy from producers who put transparency above profit and hold them to that standard. That's how we fix this. And if you're tired of the lies, if you're fed up with fake food and marketing gimmicks, then now's the time to act. You don't need to be a beekeeper to protect the integrity of honey. You just need to be a conscious consumer, one who refuses to settle, one who demands better. So go look in your pantry, check your honey jar, ask the question, can this brand prove what it claims? If not, it's time to throw it out and start fresh. If this opened your eyes, if you feel like you just learned more about honey in 15 minutes than you ever thought you needed to know, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share this with your friends, your family, the guy who puts honey in his tea every morning, thinking it's healthy. Drop a comment below and let us know what honey you trust or what brand you just swore off forever. And if you want more breakdowns like this, you know what to do. Subscribe, stick with us. This isn't just about honey, it's about truth, and we're just getting started.